here gathered for such an important occasion. I have a poem dedicated for Oscar Lopez Rivera. It's titled Bring Him Home, and it's about the necessity to get him back in his community. And so here we go. Bring him home. Doña Glady came to me in a dream, woke me to the world of the unimaginable. She told me to imagine and see the world as poets do. She whispered, "Come home, Oscar, come home." She turned and looked into my eyes and said, "Bring him home, bring him home, we need him home." Two children play near 115th and 3rd Ave. From the street through an open red door, they see a poster. They read it aloud. Bring him home. They repeat it. Bring him home. In the back room, the activist, lawyer, executive director, former political prisoner argue over semantics. Come home. Bring him home. We need him home. Titles really don't matter as long as he is home. His children grow from his own resistance. They grew in his own former streets, lost in gun smoke, addictions that ate their bodies, but born in his shadow. They wish to catch a glimpse of him. They drum, they sing, they dance and sweat beats and rhythm. They want him home. They stress to bring him home. In class, a teacher explains what it's like to see children through glass. To almost touch hand to hand, but be separated by this window that is much more than a window, to be isolated for 12 years. The students listen. Many of them have been on the other side of that glass. So they understand the isolation, the pain. They say he must come home. The activists running to event after event, petition and clipboards in hand, so many times, so many events, so many questions. She questions its value, its worth, if it's truly making a difference. All the while, they need him home. His brother's relentless fight for justice, thirst for freedom, drives him forward. His hopes only heard by them closest to him. His step a little happier, his glance a little stronger, his hope more open. They need him home. He knows he will come home. His community not too quick to believe, but slowly start to hope. They awaken from their sleep, they rise from their long rest, and start to wonder, start to question. They begin to see the possibility, they start to fight to bring him home. The young girl goes to school, told he is a terrorist, a bad man, but she knows better and pushes onward to see him home. They meet on the floor of Congress, the same floor of Lolita's rebellion. All four agree to sign a letter for his release. He might come home. A poet writes away imagining, creating conditions, writing the myth, all its wonderful exaggerations, writing true conviction, they call him home. All of this, poems, nights making pasteles to fundraise, conversations, meetings and more meetings, tours, plays, visits, talks, years of work and toil, printed flyers, door-to-door, canvassing, persuading elected officials in our community, persuading door-to-door our community. All of this is the birth of freedom. They all agree, the poet, activist, former political prisoner, teacher, child, student, daughter, mother, brother, preacher, politician, actor, executive director, that they need him home, that he must come home, that without him they are incomplete, that without him their myth is not finished, their journey slower, their story half told. Yes, without him. It is as if Lolita had never kneeled before Jesus' grave and said mission complete, or Che would never mess his destiny in Bolivia. No, they need him home. Like the myth, he who was born on to be King's Day, a sign of his strength, he must fulfill his destiny and come home, so we may reach out and embrace him, so we may kiss him, cry with him, laugh with him. He must come home so that we too may reach our destiny. So I ask you, do all you can do to bring him home, so we may be complete again, so we can return him to his nation so desperately that needs him. Bring Oscar Lopez Rivera home, bring him home. Whoa!
Into our church, and so again, welcome, welcome, welcome. I began this evening asking, why are we here? The answer to that question question is because of Oscar Lopez Rivera. Oscar Lopez Rivera has served more than 32 years in prison, convicted for seditious conspiracy, which is for his commitment to the independence of Puerto Rico. Although he was not accused nor convicted of causing harm or taking human life. He is serving a sentence of 70 years. He is among the longest held political prisoners in the history of Puerto Rico and of the world. No other country keeps its political prisoners behind bars for as many decades as the United States does. So we are here tonight for Oscar Lopez Rivera. We are here to call attention to his situation and call for his pardon by President Obama. We are also here this evening as a result of a series of dialogues between Reverend Dr. Cruz and Dr. Cornel West. Dr. West and Dr. Cruz first met here over a year ago in December under the title of a dialogue called Common Ground, Common Hope, a Black to Brown Dialogue. They then continued the conversation this past September when they traveled to Puerto Rico and spoke around issues of colonialism, of U.S. imperialism, and a host of issues that's come out of those dynamics in which we live. It is in Puerto Rico that Dr. West and Dr. Cruz began the conversation of what they can do, or what they can continue to do to be involved around the issue of pardon for Oscar Lopez Rivera. And it is then that Dr. West suggested that we host this event during Black History Month, call attention to the issue so that he could come and share his presence, his wisdom, his insight, and his motivation and commitment to justice with us all this evening. So we are here as a result of those conversations. There are so many people here this evening from so many different sectors. And so to begin, I would like to read some names and recognize some people in the room here who have been committed to this issue, been committed to issues of human rights in many different ways, through public office, through their artwork, through their organizing. And so I'd like to begin by recognizing in the room Congresswoman Nidia Velázquez. I'd also like to recognize Council Speaker Melissa Marx-Figueiredo. And I would also like to recognize, not Peter Baker, but I believe he's here, our council member, Carlos Menchaca here, council member for Sunset Park. There's been a lot of work that has gone into making this evening happen. And now I'd like to recognize some of the people who have put in the hours and the passion and the love into getting people here tonight to talk about this issue, to draw attention to this issue. From 1199, I would like to recognize Jose Candelario. Luis Matos. Executive Vice President Steve Kramer. Vice President Minerva Soya. Vice President Victor Rivera. who are here to learn about this issue, learn about who Oscar Lopez Rivera is, and how you can become involved. This is a wonderful opportunity because we have the choir here, but we are not just speaking to the choir. We have people here who want to learn, and we welcome you, and we're excited that you're here. We want to make sure you feel welcome. And we are happy to be here this evening also in the spirit of celebration as we celebrate this month, Black History Month. And we hold all the struggles and accomplishments of the Black community here this evening in this event, in this celebration. I would also like to recognize students from Nyack College who are here this evening, and any other students who are here. From Union Theological Seminary. And I'd also like to give a special welcome to Alejandro Núñez Padrón, who is here as the Minister Counselor of the Permanent Mission of the Republic of Cuba to the UN. It is now that I would like to begin with a moment of silence. We take this moment of silence in remembrance of a revolutionary poet, Amiri Baraka, and freedom fighter and South African President Nelson Mandela, both of whom we lost this year. So let's take a moment of silence. And since we are in church, I would like to open this event with an invocation. Let us pray. Holy and loving God, we thank you for this opportunity to gather here this evening in your presence. Oh God, all your people are beloved across races, nationalities, religions, sexual orientations, in all the ways that we are distinctive from one another. We are all manifestations of your image. In the words of Martin Luther King, we are bound together in an inescapable network of mutuality and tied to a single garden of destiny. You call us to your unending work of justice, of peace, and of love. Help us to open our eyes and ears and hearts to your beloved who suffer on the account of injustice. Help us to see the task that you lay before us, to be your hands and feet and voices in a broken world where people of color do not receive equal treatment before the law, where powers and principalities persecute those who are courageous enough to love their people and freedom and their homeland, and those who dare to stand on the side of the oppressed in our communities. Let us know your presence among us here now, and bless each of us and this gathering. Amen. And so now, I would like to introduce a few speakers who we've invited to say a few words in relation to this event. And so I would like to begin by welcoming Professor Alfredo Cid, who's Professor of Philosophy at Nyack College and member of Trinity Sunset Park.
Dr. Samuel Cruz, Dr. Cornel West, distinguished guests, elected officials, students, pastors, friends, Trinity and the leadership, thank you so much for this great opportunity. Oscar Lopez Rivera has been an inspiration and a blessing to me. Some months ago when we were marching across the Williamsburg Bridge, my youngest son asked me, "Daddy, what are we doing? It is cold out here, what are we marching?" I said, "My son, we're marching because there is a person that stood up for justice. There is a person that has stood up for righteousness. There's a person that has stood up to represent those that are underrepresented, for the marginalized." Well, I didn't say those words today, but this is what I said in a few every word. Son, we're here because someone that thought that something was wrong is doing over 27 years in prison, and we're here because we think that that's not right. And he was inspired, and he just keeps on talking about Oscar Lopez Rivera to this day. And let me tell you, I am from the Dominican Republic, Puerto Plata, República Dominicana. And I am here today because thanks to Oscar Lopez Rivera, I am able to tell you about something that saddens me, something that is shameful as a Dominican, and it is the Dominican-Haitian crisis that is taking place right now in my country. And I'm not naive about many things, which I'm not going to get into. Many people say, how can you be showing up your own country and your own people when the United States has issues with immigration? How can you be talking about the Dominican Republic and calling them out and calling your own people out when France is the one responsible for this problem and they have issues with Arabs and immigration in their country? How come you call out the Dominican people when Haiti is to be blamed for the dictatorships and all the things that have happened in that country to create the poverty and all the problems that the Haitians have? And they should be thankful that Haitians are running to the Dominican Republic to find work and do these other things. So it has been very difficult for me to deal with these issues as my own country men and women call me out for the things that are happening. But I'm not here to talk about the U.S. I'm not here to talk about France. I'm not here to talk about Haiti. I'm not here to talk about what the historical history has been about this situation. I'm here to talk about the Dominican Republic. I'm here to talk about my people because responsibility starts at home. And all I want to say is that, of course, we have to know the history. Of course, we have to be informed about the dialogue. Of course, all these things need to be put on the table and be discussed. And we do that all the time. But I'm just here to say that, and very basically on three grounds, I think the Dominican Republic, the Dominican people here in the United States and in the Dominican Republic should realize that what's happening is wrong for three reasons. Number one is the humanizers of the people. And we know what has happened when that happens, right? The nicest people become brutal, become cruel and criminal when you dehumanize others and they don't see a fellow human as a human. Happening in Nazi Germany, it's happening in many other places. We don't want it to happen in the Dominican Republic. I was there. In the last 5 years, I lived there, almost lived there, because I was in both countries for about 3 years. And I saw how the Haitian does the work that no one else wants to do. I saw how the Haitian works for a meal a day. I saw how Haitians that have been born there, and sometimes they are like a second generation Haitian, third generation Haitian is not even able to get a citizenship or the rights of a citizen because their parents, their grandparents were Haitians. This is not fair. This is unjust. And I thank the Puerto Rican community. I thank the Latino community. I thank the African American community as we celebrate African American Black History Month for not only being here to advocate on behalf of our brother Oscar Lopez Rivera, but also to remind us that there's places, small places, like the Dominican Republic where this is happening. Thank you very much.
So we are in a bit of a difficult situation because we have other people who we would like to recognize and who are willing to offer words this evening, but we'd also like to be able to have enough time for the dialogue that was planned. So I just want to recognize Reverend Gabriel Salguero, who's pastor of the Lamb Church. I'm so happy to be here tonight. So next I would like to introduce Dr. Jose Lopez. I would like to say that, above all, we know that Dr. Lopez is Oscar Lopez Rivera's brother, and we're so happy that he will be here with us. He came out from Chicago. It was Dr. Lopez, along with others, who waged the successful campaign that freed the Puerto Rican nationalists in 1979. Dr. Lopez himself spent 7 months in prison as a result of refusing to testify before the federal grand jury investigating the Puerto Rican independence movement. So we are so happy to have him here. I would also like to introduce our pastor, Reverend Dr. Cruz. We are happy that he's here with us tonight. Pastor Cruz lives on a ministry that addresses real social issues and engages racial, gender, sexual, and class oppressions here in the community and in his academic work as professor at Union Theological Seminary. He's an outspoken advocate on behalf of the LGBTQ community, on behalf of the immigrant community, on behalf of the poor, the oppressed, people of color. We are so proud to have him as our senior pastor here, and proud that he can be here as part of this dialogue. And finally, I would like to introduce Dr. Cornel West. We are so grateful to have him here this evening. He has been a fighter on behalf of all oppressed communities, Blacks, Latinos, LGBTQ, the poor. Many of us know him as a scholar, a teacher, a movie star. But above all, a prophetic voice for justice and an exemplary Christian. And so I would like to introduce Cornel West and leave it to Dr. Cruz to further introduce our panel.
Thank you all for being here. I'm really excited that I'm able to be here tonight. It was kind of strange to be at the precinct praying with Attorney Laura Miranda and Dr. Cornel West and David Galazza this afternoon, and I was able to make it here. Thank God. I told Cornel that I had a confession to make, and I said I don't want to do it at the precinct, I want to do it at church. The roof is with me. When we were in Puerto Rico, I never told them this, we were both exhausted because they had us going all over the place. And on top of that, all these people were coming. Are you Cornel? Are you him? Are you the guy in Bill Maher? I was taking a lot of pictures, and the second day we were there, it was morning, he was standing by a corner at the lobby, and there were some people talking, saying, "Is that him? Is that him?" And I went up to them, I said, "Do you like his music?" And they said, "Yes." I said, "Yes, that's Prince." It was a result of exhaustion. To this day, they thought they saw Prince in San Juan. They never went up to you, so. I just want to say a few words to start off the dialogue with Dr. Jose Lopez, who we're really grateful to have here. He came at the last moment, was gracious enough to accept our invitation. But in Puerto Rico, among Puerto Ricans, there's a saying that goes like this, por si la boca. That means just in case the flies come around. So I discovered, as a sociologist of religion, at least I've discovered it, I don't know if anybody else agrees, that Puerto Ricans have a theology or religion of por si la boca. They cover all bases. Before process theology discovered this. What do I mean by that? A lot of Puerto Ricans and Caribbean people, they come to church Sunday mornings at 11. And by 2 o'clock, they're visiting the spiritists. By 8 o'clock, they're visiting the Santero Priestess. In other words, when it comes to their spiritual lives, they're going to cover all bases. Now, why do I say that? Because we've been serious about our spiritual lives. And Oscar Lopez Rivera, in my opinion, has done something that I haven't seen done in the Puerto Rican community, which is we translated our theology into the political reality. So I think the Puerto Rican community has decided that we're going to cover all bases to get Oscar Lopez out of prison. So now we have staplers, independentistas, nationalists, los del ELCA, working together because we're not leaving anything up to chance. We want to cover all bases. And that's why I'm really excited to be here tonight, because the community has come together. However, I have to say that I was thinking about this and I flirted with the notion of neutrality. But I heard someone talk once about extreme pluralism. I think we've referred to that a little bit. Radical democratization, where everybody speaks and not being afraid. So I want to say, I have to admit, I really can't be neutral. There's no such thing. So I have to say that I respect everyone's ideology here. I really do. I really do. But this night, I want to say que viva Puerto Rico libre.
Let me begin by saying that I know that both Lydia and Melissa had to leave And I really want to say that the people of New York are extremely honored, and should be extremely honored, to have these incredible, powerful women representing but I just want to say that Nidia was in Puerto Rico on the 23rd of November. I think it was the 23rd, 21st. At this huge march, over close to 50,000 people, and from every spectrum of the movement, religious expression. And Nidia walked all the way from, it was an incredible long distance. And her sister went all the way through and did not even think about not doing it. Really it showed this incredible sense on a personal level, because sometimes we forget that elected officials also have a very deep personal level to them. And I think that both Nidia and Melissa are extremely great examples of that inner strength which has made the Puerto Rican woman the woman that they are. The parents of I take this moment, maybe I should do it afterwards. I have a message for Cornel West, but I'm going to wait before when people ask the question, because I've been asked to be brief, and I want to be brief and respectful. Oscar Lopez Rivera has become an emblematic figure in Puerto Rico. He has become the symbol of what Puerto Ricans really are about. And there's a certain grace in being Puerto Rican. It's an incredible level of solidarity in being Puerto Rican. There is a deep sense of justice in being Puerto Rican. And all of those things that make us Puerto Rican, all of those wonderful things that we've been told through a colonial narrative that we don't have, we have, and Oscar has become that symbol of those things that are in the best of the Puerto Rican tradition. Yesterday there was a wonderful article, 3 pages in the Nuevo Dia. You have to read this. It's a wonderful article, an exclusive interview with my brother Oscar Lopez. But I want to tell you that this campaign has really taken off in a way that we could not have imagined. I was in Caguas, Puerto Rico this Friday. The Bishop of Caguas decreed that all the churches should hold a one-day fast for Oscar. From 7 o'clock in the evening till 12 o'clock. Different churches from the Diocese of Caguas came. And it was an amazing array of all kinds of Catholics, but also all kinds of Protestants. When I come in, I see this chorus of Baptists, a chorus of the Baptist church. All these elderly men dressed very conservatively, looking like they were in a 1950 church, Baptist church, singing in a choir, and were Christian soldiers. And each one of them, those traditional Christian hymns, were dedicated, each one of them dedicated this to the freedom of Oscar Lopez Rivera. When you saw children and nuns and priests, and all of them came together in that cathedral to really express their deep sense for Oscar's release. But I want to say something, and I want to express my deepest gratitude to Reverend Cruz. Dr. Samuel Cruz has brought us here into the county the borough of Brooklyn, right? Which everywhere else is a county except in New York and some other places, right? But I want to say that this county has the largest black population of any county in the United States. It also has the largest Puerto Rican population of any county in the United States. Think about what this man has done politically in terms of sending a powerful message to Obama and to whoever wants to succeed Obama. There's a powerful base right here in Brooklyn that's looking to see what decision he makes around the case of my brother Oscar Lopez Rivera. So I really think that beyond this wonderful crowd, beyond the organization, obviously for me, this is a very, very special moment to be here in Brooklyn in this incredible church. But I would be remiss if I also didn't say that for us, this is a momentous occasion to have Dr. Cornel West here with us. He is, without a doubt, I believe, the greatest public intellectual in this country. He speaks really truth to power. He has really, as a child of the great Spanish poet would say, walked the walk. And he has become an incredible witness and an incredible prophetic voice for those who don't often have a voice. And in this moment, in this place, we should be dedicating this event to Oscar Lopez Rivera and having Cornel West here makes an incredible contribution to the cause of the release of my brother. We can bring together the Latinos and the black community. This is an amazing moment. But I will also be remiss if I didn't recognize that there's a woman here, Emma Lozano. This woman, stand up. She is, without a doubt, the national leader of the movement to the undocumented. She, when you look at the history of the immigrant movement and the marches, that woman started those marches. So I really want to acknowledge her and acknowledge her solidarity with my brother as we have struggled for many years in Chicago, building an alliance based on a slogan that my brother and her brother, who also unfortunately was assassinated, who was, along with Reverend Slim Coleman, who's here also, the architects of the Harold Washington campaign that won that position for Harold Washington. Slim Coleman was one of the people that put that coalition together, and his brother But way before that, we had created a slogan with Rudy and with the Mexicans in Chicago, which went, Boricua Mexicano luchando mano en mano. And it has been a slogan that we have kept to this day. And when Emma organized her church into a refuge, into a sanctuary for an undocumented woman, and she was there for over a year and a half. El Villa Arellano, it was in the middle of a Puerto Rican community. And when Puerto Ricans said, this is not right, you should go to the Mexican community, we called a public meeting, and we had a 24-hour vigil for days with the Puerto Rican flag. Because we were there to protect El Villa Arellano, because we were brothers and sisters in the struggle. This is a lesson. This is a lesson. It comes from the practice of my brothers. The last thing that I want to say in terms of Oscar, in terms of at least who he is obviously the issue about independence and all of those. As a matter of fact, Oscar has been longer an activist in the community than he has been an activist for independence. because he began very early taking on the cause of social justice. Today, in Chicago, you can go and see one of the most vibrant Puerto Rican communities anywhere. Encased between two of the largest monuments to any flag, two steel flags that are 59 feet onto the high and 56 feet across this avenue, and they mark an excellent entry into Paseo Boricua, an area that has become the heart of the Puerto Rican community. In there you will find a school, the only high school that has a Puerto Rican curriculum and a Puerto Rican focused school. Pedro Albizu Campus is the name of that school. We have the only Puerto Rican National Museum in the United States. And I could go on and talk to you about a whole list of initiatives that we have in this vibrant economic, cultural space, that all of it, the legacy of all of that is owed to my brother's incredible work in organizing that community and in building that community. So I want you to think, as we discuss today, some of these, this discussion and conversation about Oscar, to think about that in terms of who Oscar is. And I hope that will frame some of the things that we want to talk about tonight. Thank you.
Every time I'm blessed to be in the presence of my dear brother, Cruz, I have a smile on my face. I'm here because I know that I am who I am because somebody loved me. Somebody cared for me. Somebody intended for me. Somebody told me the truth. Somebody was willing to listen. I think of 1199, I think of my working class. Don't get discouraged in the face of the bosses. Don't get discouraged given all the greed of oligarchs and plutocrats. In fact, that history is not determined just by the mighty, but rather our vision of the almighty, even when it looks as if at the moment we're defeated. People straighten their backs up, they're going somewhere because folk can't ride your back unless it's bent. Straighten it up, straighten it up. Acknowledge, visionary leaders, how difficult it is in our political system. We pray for you every day. Every day. It's cutting against the grain at levels of legalized corruption and bribery, and yet you're still trying to bear witness and follow through on justice. We understand what you're up against. The system in many ways is bigger than all of us, and we never forget about the systemic context under which we struggle. And that's why I'm here, because I want the world to know that Oscar Lopez Rivera is my brother. He is my brother. Oh, yes, he is. Yes, he is. And I consider the Lopez family as part of the spiritual nobility and political royalty of the new world. Why? Because it helps me bring together two of the treasures of our historic moment, going all the way back to the 19th century, and I'm talking about the black freedom struggle and the Puerto Rican independence struggle. There's a close relation between Ramon Betances and W.B. Du Bois. Oh yes, close connection. There's an intimate relation between Julia Burgos and Fannie Lou Hamer. And my God, every time I mention the name of Pedro Albizu Campos, oh yes, connected to both Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. Oh yes. And I know I would have gone crazy a long time ago if it were not for the music of Rafael Hernandez and Donny Hathaway, Pedro Flores and Duke Ellington and Sarah Vaughan. and Sly Stone. And to have our dear brother Jose talk about Brooklyn and the way in which chocolate people in Brooklyn, some of them dreaming in Spanish and some dreaming in English, and some of them have bilingual dreams. Good God. That's all right. But the question is, how do we come together? How do we ensure we don't look at each other through white supremacist lens so we understand our history, beginning like the Sankofa bird, always looking back to connect to the best in order to stand up and tell the truth? There is no truth that does not allow suffering to speak. And in the end, the Isley brothers are right. The Puerto Rican independence movement and the black freedom movement are really what the Isley brothers call a caravan of love. Caravan of love. And justice is what love looks like in public in the way in which tenderness is what love feels like it in private. And to have our dear brother Jose here, sophisticated thinker, intellectual activist, but also to have his brother incarcerated in the God-forsaken jails of the American empire. But we remember him. And we remember him why? Because of his love, quality of service. Who really cares about Puerto Rican peoples colonized for 400 years by the Spanish, colonized for over 100 and some years by the United States, acting as if they're only to be funneled into some mainstream and streamlined? No, they have a dignity. No, they have a sanctity like any other peoples. And when they lift their voices, echoing the theme of the national anthem of black people themselves, lifting their voices, not the echoes. There's a difference between a voice and an echo. And we got a lot of echoing folk, no matter what color they are, black, white, red, yellow, or indigenous. But when you lift your voice, you provide an answer to the four questions that W.B. Du Bois raised in 1957 at 89 years old, 6 years after he had stood in a U.S. court, handcuffed, viewed as some representative of a foreign government fighting for the banning of nuclear bombs across the board. Du Bois, what were the questions? He said, oh, here's what I have to say. Turn to page 275 in that first novel, The Ordeal of Mansard. How does integrity face oppression? Campos, Rivera, Lolita Lebron, Ella Baker, Fannie Lou Hamer. Second question, what does honesty do in the face of deception? All of the imperial lies told about Puerto Rican brothers and sisters, all of the white supremacist lies told about black people, all of the patriarchal lies told about Puerto Rican and black sisters, all of the homophobic lies told about the gay brothers and lesbian sisters in chocolate sides of town, all of the bosses' lies told about precious working peoples whose wages push back, stagnate as profits break new records every year. Third question, what does decency do in the face of insult? It's insulting to have our dear brother in prison for 32 years simply standing up for justice. Simply standing up for justice. And the last question is, what does virtue do in the face of brute force? And this is one of the questions we don't like to come to terms with. I'm going to sit down now. Because in order to come to terms with black people's struggle in America and Puerto Rican's people's struggle against the American empire, we've got to be honest about the mechanisms of repression. I can see how Campos right now with all of the radiation coming at him. Went to Harvard Law, that's all right, he's telling the truth. Here comes these vicious forces of repression. And to send a message of what? To keep us afraid and keep us intimidated. To make sure that we walk around with our backs humped over and laughing when it ain't funny and scratching when it don't itch and wearing the mask. No, when I hear the voice of my dear brother Rivera and Martin. I can see Martin now. You call Martin 4.5 hours in a paddy wagon, pitch dark with a German shepherd. They didn't tell him where they were taking him. They didn't tell him how long. When they dropped him off at Reedsville prison, his father was there. Andrew Young was there. They said it looked like he had a nervous breakdown. He only had one sentence in his mouth. And what did he say? This is the cross we must bear for the freedom of our people. That's Oscar Lopez Rivera too. That takes love, and when you love everyday people, you hate the fact they're being treated unfairly, you loathe the fact they're being treated unjustly, and if you don't do something, the rocks are gonna cry out. That's why we're here.
Cornel Lopez has said some greetings.
Yes. So, this is a message to Cornell West from my brother Oscar Lopez Rivera. I would like to express to you my heartfelt gratitude for the solidarity you have shared with our just and noble cause, and especially for all your endeavors to make this a better and more just world. Our struggle to eradicate colonialism in Puerto Rico and to make our homeland a nation where freedom, justice, and participatory democracy prevail is part and parcel of the struggle for a better and more just world. I'm fairly certain we will be victorious. The neoliberal agenda for the new millennium of the few countries that are in control of the world has not found fertile grounds in Latin America for its implementation. And the majority of the world community no longer accept wars and regime changes as a solution to the problems it faces. Our struggle against colonialism and for the independence of our homeland has existed for over 2 centuries, and neither the Spanish imperialist regime or the U.S. government have been able to defeat it, because the courageous women and men who initiated did so as an act of love and compassion. And every generation that has given it continuity have done with the same courage, love, and compassion. For those of us who struggle against U.S. colonialism, race matters. The Spanish and the U.S. government have used racism to keep us under the colonial chains and to divide us. Even before the U.S. government invaded and occupied Puerto Rico militarily, it had labeled our people as a mongrel race, and that racism still prevails. But the father of our homeland, Dr. Ramon Emeterio Betances, exhorted our people always to be proud of our dark skin, and to this day we continue to affirm and celebrate our African roots. As we celebrate Black History Month, we do it knowing we have a long struggle ahead of us. For we know a better and more just world is possible, as long as we dare to struggle for it. And someday we will celebrate who we are as a people and as one race, the universal human race. A big hug with short Puerto Rican arms and with a heart of love for you and your loved ones, and resistencia y lucha. Cornel Lopez Rivera.
Brother Cornel, I see this event this evening partially as a celebration. We struggle and struggle and sometimes have to have a party in the midst of struggle. However, I guess I'm asking you this question because I know you inspire hope in me, because I am one of the most hopeful, pessimistic people I've ever met. So I straddle between hope and pessimism all the time. Usually I find myself more pessimistic than hopeful. If it wasn't for my wife Tanya, I probably wouldn't be here. So, you have anything to say?
Oh, no, I think we got a lot of signs of hope, though. We got a lot of signs. I think one of the lessons from, the many lessons from the richness of the Puerto Rican independence struggle, the black freedom struggle, is that we're blues people, which is to say we're willing to look the catastrophic in the face, be honest about it, keep track of the darkness, and still do it with a smile. B.B. King says, nobody loves me but my mama, she might be jiving too. Ooh, that's the blues, that's catastrophic, isn't it? But B.B. does it with such a smile on his face, so much style, a little help from Lucille as a guitar, that you know he comes from a people of dignified, unbelievable creativity, unbelievable intelligence and imagination, and at our best, unbelievable love. It starts on the chocolate side of town and spills over to the vanilla sides, and the brown and red and yellows and Catholic and Jewish and Arab and Muslim and atheist and agnostic across the board. That's the best in our painting and our music. And this is very important, and I think this is so true for Brother Oscar, there's a militant tenderness, a subversive sweetness, and a radical gentleness in the best of the Puerto Rican independent movement and the black freedom movement. And Brother Oscar tied it. That's what he was talking about too. It's integral to the movement. How you relate, how you connect, what you say, how you affirm, how you empower, criticize and telling the truth, being harsh in your critique of the deed, but keep track of the doer, because the doer can change. There was a gangster named Malcolm Little who was deeply loved by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who became Malcolm X. And he even outgrew Honorable Elijah Muhammad in his own way. But without that love in the cell, he'd have still been Malcolm Little gangster. Oh, that's true for each and every one of us. I don't care what color, I don't care what sexual orientation, I don't care what civilization. That our moment doesn't trump us. But at the same time, we got to tell the truth. You see, so when we're talking about American imperialism being vicious and repressive in relation to our precious Puerto Rican brothers and sisters, oh, you sound like anti-American. No, I'm anti-injustice in America. Don't get it twisted. Don't get it misperceived.
Hermano Jose, how do you keep your hope?
Let me just share with you a little story about my brother. My brother was held 12 years in not solitary confinement, but in the most extreme, what is known as the Behavior Control Unit at Marion, Illinois. It was established there right after a group of black prisoners in 1969-70 rebelled. And actually the first person to go into that unit was Rafael Cancel Miranda, a Puerto Rican nationalist who was at Marion. And it is through that encounter of a lawyer from Chicago, Michael Deutsch, was a very close friend of ours, and representing those prisoners that revolted in Marion, that ultimately we got to meet Rafael Cancel Miranda. It's been a long process that dates to this day, and he's with us still, both in spirit and physically. But the story I want to tell you is that when my brother was placed in this unit, just literally to deprive him of everything, the lights would remain on 24 hours. It was a cell that was painted in white. It was all about controlling his senses. That's what a control unit is. In other words, what is happening in Guantanamo happened to my brother and to Rafael Cancel Miranda. In the case of Rafael, almost 45 years ago. But my brother was placed in this unit, and he sent a message. I do not want anyone to write to me or to come visit. We were all shocked. And and he didn't know what to make of this. About a year later, he calls Michael Deutsch and Jen Suster, the two lawyers, and they went to visit him. And he says, I'm ready to receive visits and to receive letters. And so I went to visit him, and he said, they wanted to impose loneliness on me. I chose solitude. And I had to learn to live with solitude. Now just think about what Henry David Thoreau wrote. In my house there are 3 chairs. 1 for company, 2 for friendship, 3 for solitude. When you think about solitude, it is one of the most human of human activities. All the religious mystics seek solace and seek to be in a state of solitude. My brother learned to live with solitude because he chose it, and the jailers did not impose it. And I say this because, to me, that was one of the greatest examples that I have ever seen from a human being. But obviously, we've seen incredible examples with Alicia Campos, Lolita Lebron, but to live 12 years and learn to transform that, transform the whole narrative, the whole practice of oppression into a practice of freedom. And I think that is what motivates me to continue in a lot of ways, because there was nothing that could have been done to my brother after that. And I want to make this a little connection. When Lolita Lebron was arrested in Vienna, they held them for a long time. They were obviously held on a boat, and the sun is being. If anybody has been to Vienna, I mean, in the middle of the day, it's really hard to survive that sun, right? And Luis Gutierrez was there, and people are talking, and this is a story that Luis tells me. He says, Lolita, so people try to cover her. She said, no, es el sol de mi patria. It's the sun of my homeland. Can't go on. When they dragged her to get her out of the ship, and there was no anchor, so you had to go through the water. And she gets all wet, and Lolita, you know, dressed very, very properly all the time. So as she was going, and people wanted to pick her up and help her, ese es el mar de mi patria. This is the sea of my homeland. And I think there's a certain mystical spirit in the Puerto Rican nationalist movement that has been passed from generation to generation to be able to transform what could be horrible into something that's human, possible, and is even blissful. Now, think about that, and then I think you know that my inspiration comes from that tradition.
I am always fascinated by the hypocrisy of our country. I watch the news, and they're always advocating for prisoners in other countries to be released. They're concerned about Kiev, Ukraine. They're concerned about injustice all over the place. Mandela became a hero in this country. And he was a real hero, but people who first thought he should have to consider him a terrorist becomes a hero, but they're able to commit these brutalities in the face of, while they still advocate for justice throughout the world. Mm-hmm. What do you think of that? And how is it that they get away with this?
Well, I think we just have to be honest and acknowledge that we live in a country that suffers from a monstrous mendacity, especially in high places. So we're lied to over and over and over and over again. And there's a hyper-hypocrisy, and then a pervasive criminality. You see, so the Wall Street crimes, you don't see those words together. You see, but not one Wall Street executive went to jail given all the crimes of market manipulation, insider trading, fraudulent activity. Oh, but let Juan or Lucia or Jamal get caught with a crack bag tonight. They're going straight to jail. See, that's not just the hypocrisy of a criminal justice system, that's a criminality. Same is true with imperial crimes, drones dropped on innocent people, 221 children and counting. Do we really believe that a baby born in Yemen, Somalia, and Pakistan has the same status as a baby born in Brooklyn? I do. I believe that. Same status as a baby born in Connecticut. Same status of a baby in Tel Aviv, West Bank, Ethiopia, Guatemala, Sacramento, California, where I'm from. You see. Not enough consistency. And so then the question becomes, well, who will tell the people about the mendacity, the hypocrisy, and the criminality? For me, the new Jim Crow is a crime against humanity. I've taught in prison for 36 years. I'm teaching a course now at Broadway. 150 brothers. Unbelievable engagement. Plato, Augustine, Samuel Beckett. I see two of my magnificent students, Anita and Brother John out there. Same text that we read at Union right there at Broadway. And then 62% of them in there for soft drug offenses. Black youth, 12%, get high every week. White youth, 12%. 65% of convictions, black. That's not just racism in a criminal justice system, that's the criminality. So it bends against the poor, it bends against the chocolate poor. Now, where is the discourse? We tend to have a bipartisan agreement of both parties. We're not going to talk about the criminality of the justice system in any systematic way. We might make a gesture here or there, but that's it. We're not going to talk about Wall Street crimes. Why? Both parties oftentimes getting big money from the same Wall Street elites. When we talk about privatizing of education, when it comes to children, money, 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 profits, 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 land grab, gentrification in cities, money, money, money. At least let's have a dialogue about it. I'm not asking anybody to agree, but let's be honest about it. Let's be candid about it. This is the truth. This is what's going on. And let's then come together and see how we overlap. We're not going to all agree. Not at all. Not at all. And so in that sense, I think that it's a matter of lifting voices. And we live in a moment in which everybody's for sale, including our leaders. And everything is for sale. That's what financialized hyper-capitalism is all about. Commodify everything. You can commodify the Black Freedom Movement, make it a commercial. Trying to commodify the kingdom of God and make it a brand. So how do you resist? Well, you got non-market values to fight against it. Love, justice, trust, fidelity, service. And what is the result? You have to be willing to pay a dear price. If you're not willing to pay the price, then there's no follow-through. And more people are resisting, willing to pay a price. That's what Brother Oscar, I think, is all about. Not just paying a price, but still the level of humility that he has. You know, the level of integrity that he has. That's why the voices from the past, as well as our young people, it's so wonderful to see the young people here, because young folk know exactly what I'm talking about in terms of highly commodified culture. That bubblegum music bounced every moment in radio and video and recording, all owned by the same oligarchs and plutocrats. So you can't even get high quality music tied to low quality spirituality. What we heard about Brother Oscar was the highest level of anti-imperialist spirituality. To be a freedom fighter, it reminds me in many ways of Mumia Abu-Jamal, on death row but still a free man. To be in the cell but more free than many of us outside of the cell, walking around with psychic bondage, spiritual bondage, political bondage anyway. We learn from Brother Oscar.
I want to take this opportunity to give some of the young people that are here an opportunity to maybe ask questions, get better informed.
Sure.
Because one of the exciting things for me about this event is that, yes, we have a lot of us who know the issue, but there are a lot of people here tonight who didn't even know Puerto Rico is a colony, who didn't know who Oscar Lopez Rivera was, this great freedom fighter. But I want to give an opportunity to the young people if they have any questions or comments for Dr. West.
My name is Oscar Lopez, and I'm from California. I traveled out here because I am black and Puerto Rican, and my father is from the Bronx. And I traveled to I'm a senior at St. John's University, and the question I just had was a recent issue that we had was the issue of Trayvon Martin and injustice of his death, and I kind of see a correlation between the injustice that's going on in our country. So how can we overcome and conquer all this injustice that's occurring recently?
Yeah, appreciate that question. I'm glad you've spoken to that microphone, too. I'm going to keep this open. Well, one, we have to recognize that Brother Trayvon, Brother Jordan Davis, and others, God bless their precious families holding on now. Every 28 hours, some precious black brother is shot down either by police or vigilante. 28 hours, so it's chronic. It's peak of an iceberg. Look at the corporate media, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and so forth. Their aim is the bottom line with their own propaganda of different various sorts. So they're not giving us the kind of context and systematic analysis of what is coming at, especially young black and brown brothers and sisters, but especially on this violent tip, the brothers, you see. And so the question then becomes exposure, information. Again, make sure you're able to read, you know, Michelle Alexander's great text, The New Jim Crow. Yeah, you know that text already. We want the young folk, make sure you read that text and engage it, you know, critically engage it and so forth, you see. Be able to see the system at work, structures at work, institutions at work, and then keep track of those who lift their voices, not in an isolated way, but in a mobilizing, organizing way. One of the most important flowering of youth activists in the last 30 years has been the magnificent work of our Latino brothers and sisters against these vicious deportations coming out of the Washington, D.C. You got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of organizing, mobilizing, lifting voices. And many of us are part of it. You don't have to be Chicano, even though it's disproportionate Chicano. No. This is a moral issue as well as a political issue. Me as a Christian, it's a spiritual issue, you see. And so the question is, at St. John's, raise voices, create networks. What kind of organizations are you a part of? If you're religious, what kind of mosque, synagogue, church are you a part of? Buddhist temple, whatever it is. If you're agnostic and atheistic, what kind of civic, secular network are you a part of? Because the assumption is that the voices will just drown out. And the mendacity and the hypocrisy and the criminality will become normalized. So everybody just defer to it, as if that's the natural order of things. No, that's not the natural order of things at all. They can change. You stay strong, though, brother.
I want to emphasize that we have letters here that we need signatures on. And I know that we have Ana, Professor Ana Lopez around, Melissa, if you're willing to. If you need to see someone about filling out these letters that you have on the pews, please, there's a campaign to raise 100,000 signatures. The letters are on the pews, so do not leave without signing them. I want to give another opportunity to a young person. Your young man over here who has a question, you could come forward. There's a mic right over there.
Oh, there's a mic right there. Oh, that's cool. You'll see it right there.
I'm really excited that we have so many young people here today.
Absolutely.
Can you hear me? Hello, my name is Marvin Enriquez, and I have a question for Mr. Rivera. In regards to your brother, why did he fight so hard for independence as opposed to just statehood? Or Why do you feel the need to have your own country as opposed to just being part of be a state as part of the United States?
It's a good question. The next part of that should be, why should a Puerto Rican in the United States want the independence of Puerto Rico? Right? Because we live statehood, right? We live statehood in the process of marginalization. My family moved to Chicago in the 1950s. As a matter of fact, I don't know my cousins, I know Javier. It's part of the incredible destruction of the Puerto Rican family that is happening with Mexicans and Latino Americanos right now. This incredible separation of families. But when we came here, this is a process of total marginalization. Something that for me is quite inspiring as well, the fact that it is the Puerto Ricans in the United States who rescue the Puerto Rican flag from anonymity and from illegality. In 1948, that flag was declared by the muzzle law, La Ley de la Mordaza, Law 53, that said you could not fly that flag. It would become a criminal act. In 1950, during the trial of Pedro Albizu Campos, as a result of the uprising in Ajuda, the flag is brought as evidence. Never in the history of humankind have I seen a flag used in a courtroom as evidence against someone. It was used against Pedro Albizu Campos. But Puerto Ricans came to this country, marginalized, treated like garbage. That's why West Side Story, right? I think there's a play here, a production here, where Rita Moreno was at. But it is amazing how we were treated, right? We were citizens, but we were not citizens. And so it came to pass that as I was growing up in Chicago, as my brother was growing up in Chicago, we found our humanity in our Puerto Ricanness. But we knew nothing about Puerto Rico. Puerto Ricans knew nothing about Puerto Rico because it's been part of our historical process of colonization. So what happened? In the process, it meant that Puerto Ricans had to construct their own image and their own historical memory. And all that Puerto Ricans knew were that flag. They rescued that flag from anonymity and illegality. And in Puerto Rico today, in Puerto Rico, 30, 40 years ago, you would not find that flag anywhere unless it was an independence rally. Today, everybody flies that flag. It's the lesson of the Puerto Ricans here. It's the lesson of my brother. That's why my brother struggled for independence.
I would also like to add to that, and there's another person who has a question, so we're going to have to move to the next, that I love your question, but I think another question to your question is, why even ask the question of why would someone want freedom in the land of freedom? The question would be, why would someone want captivity if somebody wanted that? So even the question shows us where we've been taken to, where if you ask for freedom, you're looked at as strange, you're marginalized, in a country that emphasizes democracy. I think we're going to allow one.
Can I just say one quick word to my dear brother, because I appreciate your honesty very much. But just quickly, the history of Puerto Rico is very important to read. The violation of international law at the very beginning with the Treaty of Paris. Law 53 that our brother was talking about, 1948, that was crypto-fascist in terms of not allowing any voices to be raised that reinforced or affirmed the freedom of the Puerto Rican people. If you raised your voice, zilch, like the Smith Act here in the United States. You know, the Smith Act in the United States, raise your voice critical of the United States government, Paul Robeson, W.B. Du Bois, whole host of others. Marginalized, under house arrest, passport taken. The history becomes crucial in terms of looking at the kind of stances that's taken up, brother. But I appreciate that question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You stay strong. Do that, man.
Can you speak into the mic?
I think just listening to go, you know, start as self-hatred. And I learned this like from my school. I go to one academy. I think you need to learn about yourself, and you have to dig deep in your community, and just to figure out, you know, what's the problem. Because a lot of it, what happens on the streets is it's, let's say the government or somebody, they start from your culture, and they get people to destroy your culture, and it's, you don't know it, but it's just you, and it's people, self-hatred, and it's you that's destroying it. It's not them, it's us. So I think we just have to, like, you know, just come together, agree on something, and then go on and think of, you know, other things that we can accomplish, and hopefully go on to have bigger and better things.
Eloquent, brother.
Again, I want to emphasize, please, after we finish, and we're finishing in a few minutes, sign the letters and take copies with you so that others could sign them. I'm going to ask Dr. Lopez and Dr. Cornel West to say closing remarks, and then if we could have, just hold off, I would like to end with a brief word of prayer for Oscar Lopez Rivera. Those of you who don't pray could meditate, but I would like to do that before we leave.
Well, I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank all of you for being patient with our presentation. I want to really ask each and every one of you that before you leave, please take these letters with you. Ask Anna or Melissa if you can take some. We are preparing a major delegation, and we would like to have no less than 100,000 signatures. And we'll be taken in boxes, not via email or any of that stuff that you guys use, but via the traditional way of really having something physical that speaks to the real problems of the real world. So I really want to urge all of you to really do this. I think it's also important that before I leave, I recognize Jose Candelario, who's an amazing human being and amazing worker. I think, for me personally, as I said earlier, what Reverend Dr. Samuel Cruz did here tonight, and the presence and the incredible message of Dr. Cornel West is going to have resonance. And I think that, without a doubt, we're forging a new path. My brother's freedom can only be on one step towards ultimately what we all aspire. And it is that we have ended the problems that have plagued history since it began in the form of civilization. We developed historical conflicts based on sexism, based on classism, based on racism and colonialism, and we need to put an end to those. Thank you.
No, I just salute each and every one of you for being here, and we just have to say deep down in the precincts of our own soul, we're going to do all that we can to ensure that Brother Oscar is no longer in the cell as soon as possible. And when he does, we rededicate ourselves again to make sure political prisoners across the board are no longer incarcerated. And when that's true, we continually come back. Why? Because we're long-distance runners in the struggle for justice. Why? Because we find joy in serving others and telling the truth. Why? Because those who came before loved and sacrificed so much for us. Thank you all so very much.
So we stand.
We love you.
Let us end with a word of prayer. But before, I think we could do a few chants of Libertad para Oscar Lopez Rivera. Libertad para Oscar Lopez Rivera. Libertad para Oscar Lopez Rivera. Let us pray. Gracious God, God of freedom, God of justice, I thank you for all the wonderful people that are here tonight, for this wonderful community that seeks in the midst of struggle, in the midst of despair, seeks for freedom and love and justice. I thank you for Brother Cornel and Brother Jose for the wonderful work they do that inspires us and that helps so many of us throughout this country continue to have hope in the midst of all the pessimism that sometimes we experience. We ask, oh God, that you take us now wherever we're going in grace and in peace, and with the Spirit to continue to struggle for the liberation of Oscar and for all prisoners and all who are facing injustice. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please fill out the cards that you have.